الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So I'd like to first of all thank Allah for the opportunity to be here on this evening with you, and my apologies if what I say is not understandable by some of you. Inshallah, I'll try to speak a little bit slower and try to put some Arabic terminology in there if there's somebody whose English is not strong yet. I want to thank you for inviting me to your gathering. I live in Qom, actually, in Iran. I'm just here on a visit, and inshallah tomorrow night I'll be flying back on my way back to Qom. During these 2 weeks most of the time I've been teaching at the school in Brampton, which is called Wali al-Asr. And in the evenings I've gotten a chance to visit a number of different groups of mu'mineen throughout the GTA. We went to Newmarket, we went to Richmond Hill, we went to Thornhill, different parts in the west. Now, alhamdulillah, I came to the east. So I think I deserve to be known as a GTA traveler. Alhamdulillah. Because of all the travel and because of the weather, as you can tell, my voice is a little bit not as I would like it to be. But alhamdulillah, that means that I won't be speaking too much, so you won't have to suffer too much, inshallah. Anyhow, the topic that was requested that I address is how do we preserve our iman given the environment that we're in. I just wanted to mention a few points regarding that, and if there's any questions or any discussion that you'd like to have after that, then inshallah nahnu fi khidmatikum. So, I'd like to first quote a hadith. Now this hadith is not found in books of Shia, it's found in the Sunni books. But the content of this hadith is very much in line with the Quran and other ahadith. And if it's not found in Shia books, it's because most of our ahadith, as you know, they start from the time of Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. That's when you find our ahadith. Before that, or Imam Baqir alayhi salam, Imam Zain al-Abidin, before that, it's very hard to find ahadith unless they're narrated by, like for example, Imam Sadiq says that his grandfather, the Prophet, said. But other than that, it's difficult to find hadith that are from the early times, early history of Islam. Anyhow, there's somebody named Fudayk, and Fudayk, he tells the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he says, Ya Rasulullah, innahum yaz'umuna annahu man lam yuhajir halak. They're saying that the one who doesn't do the hijrah, the muhajara, that person is going to perish, will be destroyed. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا فديك أقم الصلاة واهجر السوء واسكن من أرض قومك حيث شئت. Rasulullah says in response, he says that, O Fudayk, establish the prayer, shun evil, and you can live in the land of your people wherever you like. Now, a little bit of background to this hadith. Fudayk is somebody who is living in Makkah. And before Rasulullah himself went for the hijrah and he migrated from Makkah to Medina, he told the Muslims that you go ahead, and pretty much the entire city of Makkah had been emptied out of the Muslims. All of them had gone forward except for a handful. For example, Amir al-Mu'mineen and a few others. But Fudayk was somebody who stayed back. And people were talking to him, they were saying that, why is it that you haven't gone? You should go, it's time for doing the hijrah. But he has an excuse, he wants to stay with his family. For some reason, we don't know the reasons, he needed to be with his people, with his family. So he goes to the Prophet, he's worried, he says that, okay, if I don't go, that's it, is it over? I won't be counted as a Muslim. And the Prophet tells him the following. He says that there are two conditions. If you fulfill these two conditions, then you can stay, even though you're in the land of shirk, you're in the land of kufr. What are the two conditions? Number one, aqim as-salah. Number two, wahjur as-su. So we are living in an environment which is not a Muslim environment. It's an environment which is filled with disbelief and filled with secularism and filled with the worship of the false idols of today's era. We can take inspiration from this hadith. If we want to live here, and right now we're here for various reasons, maybe it's education, or we're working, or whatever it is that we're here for. Maybe for some of us we can't go anywhere else, this is the place we're at. If we want to live here and we want to be, and we don't want to perish, we don't want our religion to perish, we don't want our iman to perish, then we need to take this advice to heart. Number one, aqim as-salah. As you know, in the Quran, when Allah says aqim as-salah, it doesn't just mean salah. And it doesn't just mean salli or sallu. There's a difference between aqim as-salah and salli. To do iqama of salah, iqama means that you take something that's just, kind of lying down and you make it upright. You make it do qiyam. Right? So, if somebody does iqama of salah, it's much more than just saying their prayer. It means saying it properly. Saying it in jama'ah. Saying it with all the conditions. Giving it proper time and making it be something meaningful. Not something where, whenever I get a few minutes, let me just go off in the corner and quickly finish it off and just check it off my checklist and then go off and do the rest of the things that I have to do. Make it be a priority. Not only that, in the Quran when Allah talks about iqama of salah, it doesn't just mean salah. Everything else that's related to salah as well, to all the other wajibat. And this is the key, that how do we preserve our iman? By performing the wajibat and staying away from the muharramat. This is the essence of any type of growth towards Allah. As you know, in our hadith, we have a hadith which talk about how to have qurb to Allah. How is it that we get closer to Allah? And there's one hadith which talks about qurbun nawafil. Right? That whenever my servant does any of the nawafil, any act which is not wajib, but he does it for my sake, then as he does so, he is attaining proximity, he's going closer to me. But we have another hadith, or another set of hadith which talk about qurbul fara'id. Meaning the best way of getting close to Allah, of preserving and strengthening our iman, is by performing the fara'id. Right? Knowing what it is that we need to do, and performing and acting upon it. But not only that, you see that Rasulullah doesn't just say aqim as-salah, he's aqim as-salah wahjur as-su. If you don't do the hijrah from Makkah to Medina, at least you have to do one hijrah, which is a hijrah from any evil. This society that we're in has a lot of evil, a lot of su. Wherever you go, there's scenes which are questionable, right? If not haram. Wherever you go, there's opportunities to engage in sin, especially in a college campus. I understand a lot of the brothers here are going to university, right? You know how it is, right? In university, things are a little bit laid back, right? And sometimes, you're invited to do things. You have to be careful, right? Especially in this environment right here. We need to have an active campaign, meaning actively we need to be identifying what is it that's su, whatever it is that's evil, and migrating away from that. So the first point of advice when it comes to preserving the iman is this very point, that we have to perform our wajibat, stay away from that which is haram. Now some people say that, okay, well, we're living in this environment, isn't it the case that Allah will be merciful on us? He knows that it's challenging, and He knows that it's not like it was back home, where everything was ready for us, it was a lot easier. So then won't He take it easy? Won't it be like, won't He sort of give us an excuse and say that, okay, I know that you were in a difficult situation, and it was okay for you to sin, it was okay for you not to do that wajib thing. The answer is no, there's no excuse. We can't make the land that we're in an excuse for not being committed to the deen. You know the verse from the Quran, it's a very beautiful verse, which is about hijrah. Let me just say salawat, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
الله من عادها ثانية.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
عليهم السلام ثالثا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الذين توفاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم. There are some people, when the angels come to take their souls, their condition will be that they are doing dhulm to themselves. They're doing dhulm to oneself. What does that mean? Right? You think about oppressing, if you translate dhulm to be oppression, you think about oppressing, for example, another human being. But the Quran describes us as oppressing ourselves. Why is that? Because when we commit a sin, we're not hurting Allah. Allah doesn't want our obedience. He doesn't need it from us. He wants it from us. He doesn't need it. The only one we're hurting, or the primary individual that we're hurting when we commit a sin is ourselves. So we're doing dhulm to ourselves. So when these angels will come to these people who are doing dhulm to themselves, قَالُوا فِيمَا كُنْتُمْ, they'll say, what is it? Why is it that you're in this state? Why are you like this? قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. They'll say that, no, we were mustad'af. We were weak. It was a weak situation. We didn't have power in the land. That was the environment that we're in. Everyone else was doing that, so we had to do the same thing. قَالُوا أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَأَوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. The angel will say that, wasn't it the case that Allah's earth was expansive, that it was wide, that you could have done hijrah in there, and for them, their destination is Jahannam, and what an evil destination it is. The point being that it's not, the place that we're in is not an excuse for not practicing. However, we can say the following, that if somebody is able to be in this environment, and is able to maintain taqwa, is able to do the iqamah of salah and all the other wajibat, is able to do the wahjur as-su', then the reward will be greater. Right? Because the challenge was greater than somebody who was just doing it just because that's the way it was. So that is something that we can say, but not that we have an excuse now, unless of course there's a compelling circumstance. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, I only have 3 points. Point number two, advice number two is that aside from this, the wajib, it's good to also have a program of mustahabat as well too. You don't just stick to doing that which is, I must do these things. I know that I must say my 5 prayers, I must, for example, fast in the month of Ramadan and nothing else. No. Because what we know is that the wajibat are like seeds that you plant in the ground, and every seed needs water in order to make the plant grow. The water which makes the seeds grow is our mustahab action. What are some of the mustahab things that we can do here especially? One of them is to get together with the mu'mineen, to be with the brothers. Okay, this is very important. What you're doing here, it's essential. Inshallah, you do even more of it. And to have good, close friends around us, living with them if possible, and creating that environment of iman wherever we are. Now, of course, when we're out there in a college campus, when we're out in the workforce, things are different. And we have to operate and we have to interact with others. But in our home environment, in our school environments, we should try to create this type of atmosphere, where we are with mu'mineen, and it's a positive and healthy atmosphere. So visiting the mu'mineen. Other types of mustahabat is making sure that we have a program of dua, and be calling upon Allah. If we don't have that, if we don't engage in munajat, for example, the munajat khamsat ashar of Imam Sajjad, these are short. Right? Even if you're a busy college student, you're doing your PhD, you're busy doing research, you don't have that much time, okay, 5 minutes a day, you do, or even 3 minutes, 4 minutes, munajat al-muhibbin, right? Munajat al-arifin. Have you seen this? It's very beautiful, right? Munajat al-dhakirin, munajat al-shakirin. These are very, very good reminders for us, and they help strengthen and remind us of the connection that we have with Allah and the need that we have of Him. So similarly, we need to have what they say for mustahabat is that we have to make sure that we're regular and consistent about that. As college students, the way it works is that you work like with ebbs and peaks, meaning that during midterms you get very busy and then things kind of taper down. During finals you get even more busier and then things kind of taper down. Now, if that's the case, right? That's what's happening with school. when it comes to our commitment to Allah and our ibadah, we shouldn't let our ibadah also go like this and like this. Okay? If we do that, then we'll find that we're going through our exam period and hardly does the thought of Allah come to our mind. Right? We're so busy studying, we're so busy giving exam, we barely even sleep, right? Our Fajr prayer, it's not even clear whether we can wake up for it or not. Right? It's very important to always have a schedule, always have a routine, and within that routine, we said that, okay, I will do, for example, 3 pages of Quran every day, or 4 pages of Quran every day, or 50 ayah of Quran, no matter what, unless there's a really, really, really compelling circumstance. Otherwise, I will do this. I will, for example, do one munajat. I will, for example, do ziyarah of one of the imams, for example, or I will do dua al-ahad, or whatever it is. It's very important to have that be part of our routine, especially in this environment. Like this environment is one which tells you, you know what, these things, there's other things which are more important that you have to be striving for. The God of this environment that we're in is a different God, right? The idols that they worship are different idols. Okay, the last point of advice that I want to share tonight about preserving the iman is that of making sure that we receive mu'idah. Mu'idah, as you know, is when we receive a spiritual reminder from somebody. You see, we are in need of being reminded by others of what's important. It's not enough just for us to be alone, just for us to read books and just go on with our own business. No, we have to be receiving reminders regularly, at least once a week. Those type of reminders that come from the heart and that hit the heart. We look at the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi Muslim. For example, you'd find our Rasulullah, sometimes he would tell Jibreel alayhi salam, he say, Ya Jibreel, or Ya Jibreel, Aidhni. Now why is it that Rasulullah is asking Jibreel to give him mu'idah? Jibreel, the Rasulullah is a higher status than Jibreel. But the reason is because, after all, the ear has a haqq. It has a haqq, it has a right as well too. And it needs to receive those reminders as well. Even you see that in the seerah of the prophets, Nabi Yahya alayhi salam, you see that one time he sees this one person who is saying wise things, but he's not a scholar, he's not a prophet. But still he goes to him and he says that, oh, Ya fulan, idhni, give me some advice. Give me some reminders. Now you being here in this environment, right, it's important that, of course, that you receive these reminders as well too. Maybe back home, you have your favorite scholar that you would listen to live. So here, get their lectures, for example, even 15 minutes, half an hour a week. Listen to that as a reminder. Right? Even it doesn't have to be something new, something so philosophical that that you've never heard before. No, just some of the basic things, some of the basic ahadith. These can be very, very effective in waking us up and waking up this heart right here. Otherwise, our heart will die. Our heart is like a rechargeable battery. If you don't give it a charge and you keep on using it, right, it's eventually going to run out of charge. Right? And you know how it is that if it weren't for Muharram, if it weren't for the month of Ramadan, then where would we be when it comes to our spiritual heart, right? Now, it's not supposed to be the case that only in those months we feel like we're close to Allah. No, even outside of the month. I mean, the whole purpose for why we came to this world is so that we get closer and closer to Allah. And in fact, we're told that even if 2 days we remain the same in our relationship with Allah, we're actually losing out. Because every day is supposed to be a day of progressing towards Allah. So I mentioned 3 points here. One of them is making sure that we're committed to the wajibat and muharramat. And of course that involves learning about them as well too. One point here is that it's very good that while you're doing your studies in whatever field that you're studying, you should also engage in the study of the deen as well too. Have different halaqat where you study books of aqa'id, books of ahkam, listen to lectures of ahkam that are being explained by a good alim, books of akhlaq, lectures of akhlaq, but do it together. Try to have these small study circles. Because after all, our responsibility isn't just to study whatever sciences that you're studying or whatever humanities that you're studying. That's important. But we, as a young Muslim, a young Shia, we especially have to engage in the study of the deen. In one hadith, one of the imams says that if I were to find one of the shabab, one of the youth of the Shia, and he is not doing tafaqquh fi din, he's not engaged in deep study of the religion, I would take my whip and I would whip him. Right? That's how much for the imam, it's very difficult for him to see that. This is the age that we have to do so. Now you might say that no, we're too busy doing our homework. I'd say that no. Okay, that's an excuse. You can never be too busy when you're in university, because this is the time. It only gets worse when you get older and older. Okay, this is the time where you can always carve out, even 2 hours a week, right, where you get together and you study. This is good. This is necessary. We have dua, where you have majalis, but you also need that as well too. That was the first one. The second one, as I mentioned, was having a small but regular program of mustahabbat, including visiting the mu'mineen and dua, ziyarah, tawassul. And the third one was receiving regular spiritual reminders. This is all I wanted to present tonight, and then if there's any comments or questions from brothers or sisters, then we're happy to take that. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. You find that especially in places where the weather is cold, when there's a hot day, people are so excited, then they take advantage of it the best way possible, So in all ways, they'll take advantage of it, if you know what I mean. Okay, so what's the most effective way to combat, to deal with this? Okay, the most effective, the only way is of course to not look. Okay, if we don't look, right, then there's no problem. As soon as we look, that's when the problem comes up. In hadith, we're told that another sahmun min sihami iblis. It's an arrow which is from the arrows of iblis, but it's masmoom. It's something which is poisoned. Now, why is it a poison arrow? Like this, a poison arrow. There's the initial impact when it hits you, right? It's like it hits you, like, oh, that hurt me so much, right? But is that the worst sort of blow? No, it's the sum. It's the poison that now is going to seep in. That's the second blow, right? And that's exactly the way it works. The nadar haram, right? When it enters, our brain will capture that image. Okay. Now there's an initial sin which is associated with that, but then shaitan, now he has his ammunition, right? Some other time he'll come and he'll take advantage of that. Okay, so the most effective way is to not look in the. We have to get in the habit from now. Okay, right now you say, oh no, they're just wearing thick jackets. Let me go and look. No, from now, you just make it a policy, very simple, that I will not deliberately look at the face of a non-mahram. Okay, if I have to, for example, let's say that I'm in my research lab. Anybody, you guys do research as well, too, some of the brothers? Yes. Okay. Or you're working, for example, maybe some of you. But anyway, like sometimes you have to. Sometimes you need to go talk to your professor, and she's a lady, so you go to the office hours. Okay. So there, even if you have to look, you don't stare. Okay, you just look up and then you look down. You look up and you look down. Like the hadith of Rasulullah Imam Ali, he says that the first look is for you, and the second one is against you, not for you. Okay, meaning what? Meaning that if it's the case that you just look and then you look away, or let's say you're just walking around, you happen to see something. Okay, you without staring, you just happen to see, then you look away. That was not intentional. That's okay. But the second one, right? If somebody were to look again, then it's going to be harming you. Okay, some people sometimes they come to this hadith, they say that okay, the first look is okay. So the Prophet didn't say how long that first look should be. So okay, as long as it's the first look, then that's now. On the other hand, we're told that if it's very beautiful hadith. Let me actually pull up the hadith because it's so beautiful. You can say salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الثانية على حب أهل البيت.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الثالثة جزاكم الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So